Alright guys, welcome back to VALORANT News. The drama continues last night. EMEA's champions have been officially crowned. The bracket is revealed for Masters Toronto and what that looks like. But the drama with the allegations around Florescent certainly goes to a new level last night. After all the responses and the documentation that came out over the last couple of days, Riot Games indicate their initial response. But there was some serious backlash from the fans on this, basically because a couple of years ago when a similar drama unfolded with regards to Sinatra, the response was rather different to what we are seeing today. What do you guys think in the comments below? Hit the like button if you enjoy. Subscribe if you're new as always, I greatly appreciate it. We have plenty to dive into today. We'll start here with the EMEA playoffs. It feels like it's only finally concluded. How long has it been, right, with Europe going on? Obviously, they had all the drama with the setups and everything that they eventually resolved. They got the new P season a few weeks ago, the new P season a few weeks ago. They finally figured that situation out. They got over the line in the playoffs. They got to the grand finals. And this is Fnatic. And honestly, I think, look, I'm not going to say Crashies deserves all the credit, but the redemption arc from Fnatic is pretty impressive because obviously they were the best team for some time a couple of years ago. Last year was not going to plan, and then this year Leo wasn't coming back in. They were like, okay, what are we going to do? They picked up that Sayonara kid for the off-season, but of course not old enough to play, and then they picked up Crashies, and it felt like a slightly, out of left field decision to go and get Crashies. I liked the move at the time, but I thought, it's definitely an interesting call to go get Crashies given that he wasn't getting a team in the Americas. And all of a sudden, now Fnatic have become this kind of different beast. Now, on some level, Heretics love losing a finals, right? Like, we do know that to be true. And I honestly really like this Heretics team. I think they're going to be a scary force going into Toronto as well. But this was, I wouldn't say the first series, but this was one of the first series that we have really seen Kayak deliver what Fnatic thought he could, right? Because when he first joined the team, he wasn't bad, but he wasn't great. And people were like, maybe it's not going to be enough. Of course, they've replaced Durka for this, right? But Kayak came in and absolutely demolished them. This game one split, he went 28-4 on the Euro, 28-5 on the Euro, absolute joke. And really, Heretics just got bowled over and there's nothing they could do. They lost the Icebox 39. Again, that was Heretics' pick. But Fnatic love that map, at least historically they do. Heretics like it as well, obviously. You're not going to pick it into Fnatic otherwise. But they lost that one. The final game was closer, but again, Kayak on the Neon, 28-17 with some big plays. They won the Fracture as well. So, yeah, 3-0 for Fnatic in the finals. I think there's still more to come from Heretics. I think it's pretty frustrating for them that, again, they make it to a finals and they give away a trophy. But the big one, of course, is going to be in a couple of weeks' time at Masters Toronto. And, of course, it's nice to see Crashies get the success. Marved and Shanks were talking about it a little bit here, and yeah, as Crashies says, EMEA champions. So quite the story. I don't think that Crashies would have started this calendar year expecting to be lifting a trophy in Europe of all places. But yeah, Fnatic definitely making some strides, and they're going to be a serious force in Toronto. So these are the teams in question. The Swiss stage sits as follows, and of course, we'll see in a second the playoffs and how that's all going to play out, because the number one seeds, they advance straight through to the playoffs. That's G2 Esports, G-Light Gaming, Fnatic and RRQ. They get the playoffs bye. Of course, G-Light Gaming will be playing without their team because their player U has been suspended for various match fixing related dramas or something. So anyway, those are the four teams that get the bye, but until then there's a Swiss stage to determine which teams actually get to play them in the playoffs. 4 teams advance, 4 teams will not. Of course, that's Sen, MIBR, Billy, Wolves, Gen.G, PaperX, Heretics, and Liquid. Those are the 8 teams. Which 4 will make it through? Well, very, very difficult to say right now, but it's going to be a stacked tournament, there's no doubt. And as you guys can see at the bottom, these are the first round games, right? The Swiss draw has been drawn as follows, and it's Gen.G playing MIBR in the first round, BLG play Team Liquid, Sentinels play Wolves, and Heretics play PaperX in the first round. So, Sen won't be unhappy about that. Wolves are the 3rd seed from China, which is the best possible first round game you can really look to get on paper, I suppose. But Heretics PaperX, that's going to be a bit of a banger. Gen.G MIBR I really like as well. Look, again, it's tough to say what you're going to get from the Chinese teams. With Edwards, I think you kind of knew a little bit more, but with the other Chinese teams internationally, now Edward aren't here, it's difficult to expect much until we see it. Trace Esports looked pretty nice in region, but then they turned up to Bangkok and didn't deliver at all. So, eventually one of these teams is going to deliver over and make a serious run. Maybe not yet. But Heretics Paper X, yeah, that's a banger first round game. Of course, the loser isn't gone immediately. They play a good couple of rounds of the Swiss stage to determine which teams actually are going to make it through. But yes, 4 of these teams will qualify. 4 of these teams will not. Now, the other things that were happening yesterday were in the EWC qualifiers. 100T were grinding. Lydia was actually able to co-stream this, so we could get to see some of the gameplay. But yeah, it's not been the most ideal tournament in terms of actually being able to watch the matches. But yeah, we did actually get to see some of this stuff, which was nice. And 100T certainly making some of the plays of all time here. I mean, this is 100T against Cloud9, and I don't know what I'm watching half the time, but yeah, certainly an interesting piece of gameplay on the split. But in the end, 100T, they do get the job done. Here's Boost Joe with the shirt off, like with that incredible posture, absolutely cooking up. And this is how it looks. So just to keep in mind, when it says qualified here, what it means is qualified for the second phase, because the teams who came 3rd and 4th, they get the preferential buys. The other teams had to fight their way through the bracket. So 100T, they got the win. That means that they've made it to the second phase. They took down Cloud9 when it mattered. I mean, their run's been pretty good. They beat Furia, they beat Gen.G, they beat Cloud9. So they've qualified through to the second side here. The other teams left in, because Lev are gone, 2G are gone. It's Crew versus Gen.G. Winner of that plays C9. Winner of that qualifies for the second stage. It's a long road for all of these teams. But yeah, Gen.G will be hopeful that they can do it. But Crew are pretty nice as well. Cloud9, pretty nice too. I mean, yeah, difficult to call how this is going to go. So the team that wins that, they play MIBR, and of these 4 teams then, MIBR, the winner of these 3 teams, EG and 100T, out of those 4, 2 will qualify, 2 will not, GSL style. Win 2 before you lose 2, that's how it's going to work. So yeah, 100T will be feeling pretty nice. I mean, they've got Evil Geniuses to play in the first round. If they win that, they've just got to win 1 more series in order to qualify. So, you know, maybe Boostio's cooking up a bit of a masterclass. But this was the big drama last night, and let's get into it right about now. So over the last few days, we've seen some major developments. Of course, the allegations against Florescent. We saw, well, one document hit the timeline. We then saw another document hit the timeline. Flor responded. And we've kind of been wondering, okay, where does it go from here? What's next, right? What does it mean for Flor? What does it mean for the scene at large, right? What evidence, you know, testimonials maybe from certain people, is it going to, you know, become like a criminal case investigation type thing? But, you know, we obviously expected at some point Riot Games to comment on this, because Flor has been a major talking point of the Valorant scene over the last several years, and has been, you know, the reality is for Riot, one of the absolute jewels in the crown of making it from game changers into tier 1. It's a big story, but it does seem that all may be crashing down very swiftly indeed. So yesterday, Valorant Esports Riot Games, they put out a statement, and the statement goes as follows. On May the 17th, we were made aware of the sexual assault allegations made against a competitor, which, first of all, very interesting, and, well, we'll talk why in a second. Such allegations are among the most serious an individual can face. We urge anyone with relevant information to contact law enforcement. Our competitive operations team will fully cooperate with any legal investigation and assess whether these allegations affect the individual's future eligibility. So, look, it's a statement, but I think immediately the reaction was, this is not the statement exactly that I think we were expecting maybe on the case. Now, there's a few things that are very interesting about this. One of the things is that there's loads of hidden replies, and I'll get to that in a second. Initially, this did not have the community note, but then it did, and we'll get to why in a second. Now, the reason why this is interesting is that by way of comparison, people are looking at the Sinatra situation, right, from a couple of years ago. Okay, you might argue the evidence in that case was somewhat different, but certainly based on the immediate reaction, the reaction was very different as well. This was the tweet that was made, or the statement that was made at the time, by Riot Games when the Sinatra allegations emerged. We are aware of the current situation regarding J1, so his full legal name, and in quotes, Sinatra. So, you know, there's absolutely no doubt who they're talking about here, and have launched an investigation. Per our existing competitive rules and investigative process, a decision has been made to suspend one throughout the investigation, and therefore he will not be able to compete this weekend. And that came from Alex Francois at Riot Games. So that's what they said at the time. Now, you may argue the rules have changed, but it's very, very rare even their history, that they would not name the individual. I mean, in the statements, they always name them, right? They always name them. I mean, it's happened with Chet. It's even happened, like, there was another from, like, Dawnmower, right, who there was other discussion on recently as well. And, you know, so anyway, I think she put out her statement on it, or what they'd said at the time. Yeah, here we go. So this is in 2022, when there was this drama as well. And yeah, statement has been issued against Dawn Park and Vivian Rosora Dela Cruz. So yeah, again, right, they put out a statement for the competitive ruling they did at the time, and it was full legal names, and it was gamer tag as well. Now, will some debate as to whether for Flor this is a bit of a different story, because, you know, Flor's for some reason on, like, the name isn't properly on the contract database, and also not actively playing in terms of not on a starting roster, but still on Apex bench. Like, Florescent is still an active player in the league. So unless their rules have dramatically changed over the last few years, and it's not like Flor is a minor, so it's not like they're protecting the, you know, name and identity in that sense either. It just seems a strange departure, because over the last few years, this is always what they do. They always put the name out there in these investigations, and in Sinatra's case, immediately suspended him while the investigation was ongoing. Whereas the reaction here from Riot in this case is very different. It's like, okay, we'll comply and we'll see whether this affects any future eligibility, despite the fact that, you know, I mean, the allegations here are as serious as we've ever seen in any of these dramas in Valorant esports. So that's why there's been a big debate on this in the community, right? Because, you know, the replies, like, there wasn't a community note initially, and then of course there was, because it just seems like Riot are not trying to, you know, mention Ava, Florescent, Eugene, right, as the community note puts out there. Now, look, I'm not saying that these hidden replies are all fair and reasonable, but I will click through a couple of them, just because the point is that the community wasn't happy about the fact that they weren't doing this, right? Because, anyway, I'm just like, you can see people are talking about say the name, keep the same energy and all this. I think what's interesting is not like the replies, and obviously some of the wording used is outrageous in many cases. The point is that, right, we're hiding all of these replies, right? So they were maybe going out of their way. Obviously, look, I understand if you want to hide things in the replies that seem offensive, but it wasn't a good look, I think. It's just not a good look when the community is like, hey, why are you doing this rather than this? And the reaction is then you truck all the replies in hidden. We can still see them anyway. Just click on hidden replies, you can still see them. So it doesn't really affect anything. It's just one of those situations where Flor has been a very important part of Riot Games' development of Valorant esports over the last few years. And it's understandable that, you know, that these allegations, if true, would have major consequences and implications, not just for Flor individually, obviously, and if this does turn out to be true, then of course really the thought should be here with the victim. But the implication is also very much towards what it means for game traders, what it means for Riot, what it means for all of these other things. So I understand why, you know, it's a big problem, this, for Riot Games in many sense, but treating it differently to how previous cases have been treated, I don't think is a good look, really. And it honestly has caused more uproar. Like, if they just did the same statement as they'd done for Sinatra, then people wouldn't be talking about it. But again, people are talking about it, and people are criticizing Riot for this response. And lots of people are looking at this and saying, okay, well, is this really, you know, fair in the circumstances? And if they're not naming for legal reasons or whatever, then maybe say it, because, you know, that often happens in other sources as well. Anyway, intrigued to your perspective in the comments below. I won't be hiding any of the replies on this video. Like, it is what it is. Of course, stay respectful as always, but very much intrigued to your thoughts on all of this stuff in the comment section below. Hit the like button if you enjoyed, subscribe if you're new, take care, and I'll see you next time.